My friends, let me tell you something straight from the heart. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can ever make is not with your words. It's with your silence, your absence, your decision to step back and say, I matter too. When you walk away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in strength, you shake the ground beneath the person who thought you'd always be there. You change the dynamic, you create space, and in that space, truth is revealed. That's when he starts to notice, that's when he starts to look for you, because it's only in the absence of light that people realize how much they depended on it. This isn't about playing games. This is about owning your worth, about refusing to shrink yourself just to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Walking away is not giving up. Walking away is stepping into your power. It is sending a message without ever speaking a word. I will not settle for less than I deserve. And here's what happens. When you walk away, he begins to search for you, not just because he misses you, but because suddenly he realizes the value you carried. He starts replaying every moment, every laugh, every touch, and he sees it through new eyes. That's when transformation begins in him, and even more importantly in you. When you walk away, something powerful happens. It's not about drama, it's not about proving a point, it's about a deep shift in awareness. People get comfortable when you're always there. They assume your presence is permanent, your love is guaranteed, and your support is endless. It becomes like air, something they breathe every single day but never stop to appreciate until it's gone. The moment you step away, the entire rhythm changes. Suddenly, silence replaces your voice, absence replaces your presence, and he begins to feel the emptiness that your presence once filled so effortlessly. That emptiness creates awareness. It stirs something inside him that he probably ignored for far too long. Walking away is not about abandoning or rejecting. It's about creating space for recognition. That space is what forces a shift. When you're always there, he doesn't have to think, he doesn't have to question, he doesn't have to evaluate. But when you leave the picture, his mind starts to run in circles. He replays conversations, he remembers your laugh, he feels the lack of your energy, and for the first time, he's confronted with the truth. You mattered more than he admitted, more than he allowed himself to see. Absence shakes him awake in a way that presence sometimes can't. Think about it. When a song plays in the background every day, you don't really notice it anymore. It's just noise. But the day that song stops playing, the silence screams. That's what your walking away does. It stops the music, and suddenly the silence is deafening. Suddenly he notices the gap, the void, the missing piece. That is awareness. And awareness is the beginning of change. Without it, nothing shifts. With it, everything becomes possible. This awareness is uncomfortable for him because it makes him question himself. Why didn't he see it sooner? Why didn't he appreciate more? Why did he take for granted the very person who stood by him? These questions rise like a flood, and they chase him until he acknowledges the truth. He realizes that he was blind to the value you brought, and now he can't ignore it anymore. Walking away forces that confrontation because there is no shield, no distraction, no escape from the emptiness you leave behind. But let's be clear, it's not about manipulation. It's not about trying to make someone chase you. It's about living in alignment with your worth. When you walk away, you're saying, I am not here to convince you of my value. I am not here to beg you to see me. My presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. That's when he sees it clearly. The awareness he gains is not just about missing you. It's about recognizing the impact you had and realizing the depth of what he lost when you chose to step back. And once that awareness is alive, it cannot be erased. It changes how he sees you, and it changes how he sees himself in relation to you. When you decide to walk away, it is not weakness, it is not surrender, and it is certainly not running from the truth. It is the purest form of self-respect. Think about it. How many times do people stay in situations where they are not valued, where their love is taken for granted, where their kindness is mistaken for obligation? They stay because they believe leaving means failure, but the truth is, walking away is not failure at all. It is standing tall and declaring to yourself and to the world, I know my worth, and I refuse to remain in a place where it isn't honored. That act is not small, it is monumental, because it requires courage, clarity, and the kind of strength most people never develop. Self-respect isn't just about words, it's about actions. You can tell yourself 100 times that you deserve better, but until you act on it, until you make the choice to step away, nothing changes. Walking away is the ultimate action. It's proof that you are no longer willing to negotiate with your value. It's you saying, I will not allow my energy to be drained, my love to be mishandled, or my time to be wasted. That's not bitterness, that's dignity, that's self, love in its highest form, and let me tell you something, self-respect is magnetic. The moment you walk away, people notice. They might not admit it out loud, but they feel it. There's a power in someone who knows their worth and isn't afraid to walk alone rather than stay where they're not seen. That power shakes others. It makes them rethink their behavior, it makes them question their choices, and often it makes them regret ever putting you in a position where you had to leave. But even beyond how they respond, the real transformation is in you. Every step you take away from what doesn't serve you strengthens your spirit. It tells your soul that you can be trusted to protect your heart, your boundaries, and your future. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. In fact, sometimes it means you cared too much, for too long, and now you are choosing to care for yourself. It's about drawing the line between love and self-sacrifice, between patience and self-betrayal. And when you draw that line, you remind yourself that respect begins with you. If you allow someone to diminish your value, you're teaching them how to treat you. But when you walk away, you're teaching them something far more powerful. You're teaching them that your love is valuable, but it's not unconditional when it comes to disrespect. At the deepest level, walking away with self-respect is not about punishing anyone else. It's about liberating yourself. It's about saying, I don't need to stay to prove my loyalty, I don't need to settle to prove my love, and I don't need to shrink to keep the peace. It's about knowing you are enough, whole, and worthy even without their approval. That is not weakness, that is strength in its purest form, and once you embrace that, you'll never see walking away as a loss. You'll see it as the most powerful gain of your life. When you walk away, something incredible happens, not just for him, but for you too. That space you create becomes a mirror, a place where reflection is no longer avoidable. As long as you are present, as long as you are always giving, always available, the other person doesn't have to stop and think. You're there to fill the gaps, to soothe the silence, to keep things moving. But when you step back, when you reclaim your presence and create distance, that automatic comfort disappears. Suddenly there is a void, and in that void, reflection begins. For him, that space becomes a confrontation with reality. He begins to reflect on what life feels like without your energy. He notices the quiet where your voice used to be. He feels the weight of nights without your reassurance, and he sees the difference between what he had with you and what life feels like without it. That's the power of space. It forces someone to sit with what they've ignored, to acknowledge what they've taken for granted. Without you standing right there, the mind replays memories, the heart replays emotions, and suddenly, the things that felt ordinary before now feel extraordinary in their absence. Reflection doesn't happen in the noise of constant presence. It happens in the stillness of distance. But this reflection isn't only his, it's yours too. When you walk away, you're not just giving him the chance to see more clearly, you're giving yourself the same gift. You begin to reflect on your own needs, your own worth, your own vision for the future. You realize how much of yourself you may have compromised, how often you stayed silent to keep peace, how frequently you gave without receiving the same in return. That reflection is sometimes uncomfortable, but it's always necessary. It shows you the truth that was hidden beneath habit and routine. It reminds you of the standards you once had and the love you promised yourself you'd never settle for less than. This space becomes a reset button. Without space, people can remain stuck in the same cycles, repeating the same patterns, playing the same roles. But distance disrupts the cycle. It halts the momentum of taking someone for granted and forces the mind to step back, observe, and reflect. And in that reflection, change becomes possible. It's in the stillness of absence that hearts awaken to what they truly value, and clarity replaces confusion. Reflection is the bridge to awareness, and awareness is the spark of transformation. By walking away and creating that space, you allow reflection to do its work. on both sides. It is not about punishing or proving. It's about allowing truth to surface where distraction once lived. And that truth, born out of reflection, becomes the very thing that changes how he sees you and how you see yourself. That is the power of creating space. It doesn't just shift the relationship, it reshapes the entire way you both perceive the connection. When you choose to walk away, you do something extraordinary. You break the pattern. Think about it. Every relationship, every connection, every dynamic is built on patterns. Maybe the pattern was you always forgiving quickly, always being the one to reach out first, always bending to keep the peace, or always giving more than you received. These patterns become invisible over time, like grooves worn into the floor from walking the same path over and over. And as long as you remain in those grooves, nothing changes. He expects you to respond the same way you always have, because that's the dance you both have been performing. But when you walk away, suddenly the dance stops. The rhythm he was comfortable with is gone, the expectation shatters, the pattern breaks. Breaking patterns is uncomfortable, not just for him, but for you too. You've been conditioned to show up in a certain way, to react with a certain response, to settle into the familiar even when the familiar doesn't serve you. Walking away is your declaration that the cycle is over. It's you saying, I refuse to play this role anymore. And the moment you make that choice, the dynamic can never go back to what it was before. That break is powerful because it forces him to wake up. No longer can he lean on your predictability. No longer can he assume you'll stay no matter what. He has to confront the reality that his actions have consequences, that your love has limits, and that your presence is not guaranteed. This disruption hits harder than words ever could. You can tell someone 1,000 times that you're tired, that you feel unseen, that you're being taken for granted, but words can fall on deaf ears. Action, on the other hand, is undeniable. Walking away is the action that speaks louder than anything else. It sends a shockwave through the pattern, forcing a reevaluation on every level. It makes him pause, reconsider, and reflect in a way he never would have if you had stayed and played the same role. And let's not forget, breaking the pattern isn't just about him, it's about you taking back your power. It's about freeing yourself from cycles that drained you, from behaviors that chipped away at your confidence, from dynamics that made you settle for less than you deserve. The act of walking away isn't just a reaction, it's a revolution within yourself. It is you stepping out of an old story and deciding to write a new one where you're not trapped in repeating loops of disappointment and compromise. Once the pattern is broken, growth can begin. For him, it may be the spark that wakes him up to his mistakes, that makes him fight for what he's losing, that teaches him the value of what he had. For you, it's the beginning of freedom. The freedom to redefine yourself, to demand more, to open your heart to new standards, and to never again allow yourself to be bound by cycles that keep you small. Walking away isn't just leaving, it's breaking chains, and once they're broken, there's no going back. When you walk away, the most profound transformation doesn't actually happen in him, it happens in you. This step, this choice, this decision to remove yourself from what no longer serves your soul, is an act of empowerment at the deepest level. It's not easy to leave behind something familiar, even if that familiarity is painful or draining. Humans are wired to cling to comfort, even when that comfort is destructive. But when you gather the courage to step away, you break free from that comfort trap, and suddenly the energy that was being poured outward towards someone who wasn't valuing it is redirected back into you. That's when empowerment begins. For the first time, you feel the weight of freedom. No longer chained to waiting for his validation, no longer stuck in the exhausting cycle of giving more than you receive, you start to reclaim your energy. It's like oxygen rushing back into your lungs after being held underwater for too long. You begin to breathe for yourself again. You start to see life through your own eyes, not through the lens of what he wants, needs, or expects. This act of walking away reminds you that you are the source of your own power, and that realization changes everything. Empowerment shows up in small ways first. You wake up in the morning, and instead of worrying about whether he noticed you, you notice yourself. You give time to your own dreams, your own growth, your own joy. You stop silencing your needs just to keep the connection alive. The silence that follows walking away, which might feel lonely at first, soon transforms into peace. And that peace becomes strength. You realize you are capable of standing alone, and more than that, you thrive when you do. Walking away empowers you because it teaches you the difference between love and dependency. You begin to understand that love should uplift, not diminish, and connection should expand you, not shrink you. By stepping away, you prove to yourself that you can survive without his approval, without his presence, and without his recognition. And once you know that, nobody can take that power away from you again. That lesson is permanent. That empowerment is irreversible. And here's the beautiful part. When you step into that power, you rise to a new frequency. You attract differently, you speak differently, you walk differently. Your energy no longer begs, it commands. You no longer question your worth, you embody it. And whether he notices and comes searching for you or not, the truth is you don't need him to. Because the empowerment you gain from walking away is not conditional, it's yours to keep. That is why walking away is not just about him chasing you, it's about you discovering yourself again. It's about finding strength in solitude, clarity in silence, and confidence in independence. The moment you realize that you are enough on your own, that your value is not tied to anyone else's recognition, you become unstoppable. Walking away is the doorway, empowerment is what's waiting for you on the other side. When you walk away, you ignite something bigger than just distance. You inspire growth. Growth for him, yes, but even more importantly, growth for yourself. The truth is, most people never change when everything feels safe, when they're comfortable, when they know you'll always be there no matter how little they give. Growth is born in discomfort. It's born in the moments when what once was secure suddenly isn't. That's why your act of leaving becomes a catalyst. It forces him to confront his behavior, his choices, his blind spots. Suddenly, he's faced with the reality that he may lose something he thought was permanent, and that realization pushes him toward growth in ways your words never could. But beyond him, the deepest growth happens in you. Walking away stretches you. It pulls you out of the role you've been stuck in and forces you to rediscover your strength. You learn to trust yourself again, to believe that you can stand tall even when you're standing alone. You grow in resilience, in self-worth, in clarity. You begin to understand your standards at a whole new level, and once you taste that kind of growth, you can never shrink back to who you were before. That version of you, the one who stayed silent, who compromised too much, who settled for less, cannot survive in the new space you've created. Growth shows up in the way you carry yourself. You start setting boundaries where you once had none. You start saying no where you used to always say yes. You start choosing yourself instead of waiting to be chosen. And while this may feel like loss in the beginning, it's actually expansion. You are evolving into a stronger, wiser, more confident version of yourself, one who no longer tolerates being undervalued. That is growth of the highest kind, and here's the irony. Your growth becomes the very thing that draws him back. When he sees the version of you who has transformed, who no longer needs him to feel complete, he is shaken. He recognizes the depth of what he lost, and that recognition often forces him to grow too. Maybe he learns accountability, maybe he learns to listen better, to give more, to respect deeply, maybe he learns that love is not about possession, but about appreciation. None of that growth would have been possible if you hadn't walked away and broken the cycle. Walking away is like planting a seed. At first, it looks like nothing is happening, only silence, only absence. But underneath, roots are forming, strength is building, growth is unfolding, both for him and for you. And one day, what was planted in the pain of separation blossoms into something new. Whether it's him coming back as a better man, or you stepping fully into a future where you are stronger, freer, and more alive than you've ever been. That is the gift of walking away. It doesn't just end a chapter, it evolves the story. When you walk away, you send a message stronger than words could ever carry. You declare to yourself and to the world that your presence is valuable, your love is powerful, and your worth is non-negotiable. In that single act, you stop begging to be seen and instead create the space where recognition must happen. Absence reveals value in a way that constant presence never could. And through your decision to step back, you remind both him and yourself that love should never come at the cost of dignity. That is not running away, that is rising up. Your absence forces awareness, It shakes patterns, it triggers reflection, and it calls for growth. For him, it awakens a hunger, a longing, a realization of what he stood to lose. He begins to see what he was blind to before. For you, it brings empowerment. You reclaim your energy, you rediscover your voice, and you remind yourself of your strength. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's recognition and begin to measure it by your own standards, your own vision, your own truth. That shift is life, changing because once you know your value, you never settle again. Walking away is not about punishing, it's about teaching. It's about teaching him, yes, but also about teaching yourself. You teach him that your presence is not guaranteed, that love requires effort, and that connection requires respect. You teach yourself that you are capable of surviving silence, of enduring solitude, of building your own happiness without leaning on someone else to complete you. That is the essence of freedom, the freedom to love without losing yourself, the freedom to give without being drained, the freedom to choose without fear. And from that freedom, growth emerges. He grows when he finally realizes the depth of what you brought into his life. You grow when you step into a stronger, more powerful version of yourself. The distance you created doesn't destroy, it transforms. It reshapes the bond if it's meant to survive, and if it isn't, it opens the path to something far greater than what you left behind. Either way, you win because you've honored yourself, you've respected your worth, and you've chosen the courage of growth over the comfort of stagnation. So the next time you wonder if walking away is weakness, remember this truth: it is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the wisdom of knowing that love without respect isn't love at all. It is the wisdom of realizing that your worth is not up for debate. And it is the wisdom of trusting that the act of leaving will not only make him look for you, but more importantly, it will make you find yourself. Because in the end, the greatest power is not in being searched for. It is in standing so strong, so rooted in who you are, that whether he comes back or not, you already know you are whole. Thank you for being here, for giving your time, your energy, and your heart to this message. Remember, these words are not just ideas to think about. They are tools to live by. You have the power to change the way you see yourself, the way you show up in relationships, and the way you value your own presence. Never underestimate the strength that lives inside you. If there is one thing I want you to take away, it's this: your worth is not defined by who stays or who goes. It is defined by the way you choose to honor yourself every single day. When you walk away with self-respect, you are not losing, you are elevating, and the world will always rise to meet a person who knows their own value. So as you leave this moment, carry that strength with you. Carry it into your relationships, into your choices, into the way you see your own life. Don't be afraid to let go of what no longer serves you. Don't be afraid of silence or space, and don't ever, ever be afraid to choose yourself. I want to thank you once again for walking this journey with me, for listening with an open heart, and for being willing to step into your own power. Your next chapter starts now, and it begins with the courage to honor who you truly are. Goodbye for now, my friends, and remember, the moment you choose yourself, the whole world begins to look for you.